Well, we're almost there, guys. Almost at the final countdown. We've got just pretty much just over 10 matches left. 11 matches for most, 10 matches for a couple of teams left in the Premier League. Things are hotting up. We are starting to get some interesting storylines. Things are taking shape. And even in terms of the championship, which we'll start talking about perhaps in the next few weeks, because that's getting fascinating as well. But what we'll do, we'll just do a quick little rundown of the Premier League games and the results that happened for game week 27. And here we go. So we started off with a 1-0 draw between Aston Villa and Leeds. Kind of a bit of a surprise. Aston Villa took a surprise loss, a surprise goal out of it, in the sense of Leeds scoring first. Decent comeback to get a draw, but I don't know, you kind of expected more given Aston Villa's current previous form, but maybe there's a little bit of spluttering going on. We'll discuss that in terms of the title race and the Premier League table. Brighton Hove Albion getting a win over Brentford. Very good job for Brighton Hove Albion. Great celebration for James Milner when it comes to the amount of games he has played. He has played, I think, is it 20 years? I think it is. Such longevity, still a very, very healthy and fit football player. Certainly a brilliant player. I've loved watching James Milner play, even when he wasn't at Liverpool, to be quite honest. Then we had Chelsea versus Burnley again. We had a bit of a surprise here. Chelsea took a 1-0 lead, then got a red card, and then Burnley equalised. So it's a draw for Chelsea. A little bit of a lost chance there for Chelsea, considering the fact that Burnley are in a relegation battle, and Chelsea didn't take advantage of it. And we go to West Ham versus Bournemouth. Bit of a boring match, but actually that worked a little bit in West Ham's favour. West Ham were decent. Just didn't really have the cutting edge to score a goal, which, it happens in games. Then we have Manchester City versus Newcastle United. Manchester City getting the win. Somewhat controversial, let's say. There was some interesting things that happened when it came to that match. Here's the thing, guys. I'm just so used to a controversial decision going Manchester City's way. That's the thing. It's not big news for me anymore. I'm used to it. Shouldn't be used to it, but that's how I feel. But anyways, and then moved on to Sunday. And then we had 4 matches that were going on. Crystal Palace getting a 1-0 victory over Wolverhampton Wanderers. Wolverhampton Wanderers actually missed out on the chance to score first in a penalty. Poor penalty from Akadare, I think his name is. But yeah, Crystal Palace getting the 1-0 victory. We'll come to Liverpool in a minute, because I like to talk about that later. In fact, no. We're doing it in order. Nottingham Forest versus Liverpool next. My God, did Nottingham Forest give Liverpool a scare? I was worried for... must have been about 70 minutes. Like, it just was... There's a couple of things I really want to talk about, which we're definitely going to discuss later on. But when it comes to Nottingham Forest versus Liverpool, Nottingham Forest were brilliant. I don't mind saying it. Callum Hudson-Odoi was brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. The guy that was on the right wing, I think, was it Hutchinson? I think it was. Insane. Absolutely insane. Showing the Premier League quality that he did from the previous season. Really, really good stuff. And in fact, looking at the players, it was just a cutting edge that was gone. Vitor Pereira has certainly brought a bit more of an attacking flair. It's kind of like Nottingham Forest needed a coach that was like Vitor Pereira. One that wasn't full-on attacking like Ange Postecoglou, one that wasn't full-on defensive like Sean Dyche. Happy medium, and they might have found someone special there, Vitor Pereira, and he's certainly woken them up. Sunderland versus Fulham. Surprising for Sunderland. That's the second home game that they have lost. I mean, we had was it a similar situation actually in the Championship last year where they were brilliant to start off with, and then they tailed off, and they managed to keep it going for like the last 2 months. I think this is standard for Sunderland, so nothing really to be too worried about. Probably if we start getting to mid-March and there's still games that are being lost when they should be being won or getting points out of, that's when it should be concerning. But ultimately, I think Sunderland are going to be staying up. There's no concern for them, and they're going to be doing fine for that. So no problem at all on that. It happens. And Fulham been doing well. Raul Jimenez, fantastic. Harry Wilson, fantastic. Amazing stuff. Tottenham Hotspur Arsenal now, and we'll do a deep dive into Tottenham later. So I'll just talk about Arsenal to start off with, and I think this is good to say. Arsenal were professional about this. That they could have. This is a local derby, if you don't know. North London derby between Tottenham Hotspur and Arsenal. Arsenal could have very easily been baited into the spice, let's say, the bite of a local rivalry, and they showed professionalism. Eze was masterful. It kind of felt insulting that he got subbed off, to be quite honest. Gyökeres was decent as well, and a good result for Arsenal. And Tottenham Hotspur, again, like I say, we will get into that later. Then we went to Monday night. Everton 0, Manchester United 1. Professional from Manchester United. Everton didn't really do too much, and Manchester United took advantage of it. So impressive stuff for Manchester United. So where does that leave us in the table, and what things to look out for? Well, here is the table that's coming up. We still have that 5-point gap in between Arsenal and Manchester City. Now, once again, Manchester City have a game in hand, so this is one of those situations where nothing has changed. We're still in the same situation we are in last week. If Arsenal win all their games, they will win the title. If Manchester City win all their games, they will win the title. So nothing has changed on that front. However, behind those two, there is a bit of a change. Liverpool have now caught up to Chelsea. They are now on the same points as Chelsea, so that is, good. Bit more spice, let's say, going on in terms of the battle for the top 4, the top 5. But things are also closing up above them. Now, it's still a 3-point gap between Liverpool and Manchester United, but now it's a 3-point gap between Manchester United and Aston Villa. We genuinely could be in a situation where all three of Manchester United, Chelsea and Liverpool could be chasing down Aston Villa for that third place spot. And considering the fact that it's highly likely that the top 5 places are going to be going to the Champions League, the top flight European League next year, it's going to be important for Aston Villa to hold on, but they're now being chased. They are now being chased. With that loss to Brentford, they've now kind of dropped a bit behind Liverpool. Maybe they'll get that back at some point, but ultimately, given the fact that the top 7, the top 8 could still get European places, they're still holding on to a really good position there, and the same for Bournemouth there. Everton and Fulham, Newcastle, Sunderland, Crystal Palace, they all could still be fighting for those top 8 positions. It's still possible. Brentford have got like a little bit of like it's a little bit in the bag for Brentford because they've got a little bit of a gap on Bournemouth, but it's still very, very tight. And actually, if we're talking in terms of the teams in form at the moment, none of them are. Maybe Bournemouth. Brentford lost the last game, drew the game before that. Everton lost the last 2 games. Fulham, yes, they won the last game, but they lost the 3 games before that. Newcastle, yes, they lost this one, but they won the last one. Sunderland lost 3 in a row now. Crystal Palace, won, but lost the previous one. And Brighton, yes, won this one, lost the previous one. Right now, Bournemouth are the ones in form. Fulham maybe by the ones that just won, but you can't really count that. In fact, ironically, I'd say the team that's next best in form is probably Brentford or Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace, by the way, 13th, sorry, just forgot to show that. So there's that going on. But I think the biggest story that people are going to be talking about is what is going on down here, because like I say, West Ham on 25 points are showing a little bit of form. Nottingham Forest on 27 points are definitely showing performance and form. Tottenham Hotspur are not. And I think this is now important to start discussing the situation when it comes to, is this relegation becoming real? Spurs finished 17th last season. Yes, they won the Europa League, but they finished 17th. They have got also the Champions League that's going on. They've got a lot of injuries that's going on. How likely is it? Well, if we were basing it on, like, let's say the first 20-25 minutes of the Tottenham Arsenal game, you'd think there's a little bit of fight in them. Ngumoha was brilliant, no doubt about it. I'd say Gallagher was decent as well. And certainly in the first half, it felt like Dragovic was the one that was getting stuck in. Jed Spence as well, maybe. But it's hard to see who's going to get them out of this situation. And I've got to be honest, guys, I don't understand the comments that I'm sometimes seeing of Tottenham needs a relegation to reset. I mean, don't get me wrong, they do certainly have a lot of young players. A lot of 17-year-olds, 22-year-olds, players that are certainly have prospects of being really top Premier League talent in Bergvall, in Mikey Moore, in Archie Gray, Van de Ven as well, to be quite honest. But and so when it comes to the Championship, you can sort of understand why that might be considered as to why they're talking about it, that they need a reset, need to go to the Championship. But with the money that they have forked out on that stadium, where there's probably still loans, with the money being spent on that and other things like that, I'm concerned. I don't know why. And the crazy thing is, I don't know what is going on in terms of fan engagement, because basically what I'm seeing in Tottenham Hotspur is kind of what I was seeing in Newcastle about 10-15 years ago, in Aston Villa about 10-15 years ago. Do you remember those teams at that time? These weren't the teams that were getting Champions League every other year. These were the teams that were just about surviving by the skin of their teeth. And Aston Villa, it was horrible to see. And we've seen kind of like, I don't want to say fallen giants before, but we've certainly seen teams that have dropped a few divisions. Now, I'm not going to put Sunderland in the same light as Tottenham Hotspur here, because I know we're talking two different sizes of clubs. But Sunderland, when getting relegated, ended up down in League Two, the fourth tier. That's the equivalent of a disaster for a former Premier League team. Same for Coventry City, by the way, as well. End up down in League Two, former Premier League team. Wolverhampton Wanderers ended up in League One, the third tier. Current Premier League team that are probably going to get relegated. They are most likely going to get relegated this season, right? Blackburn. Like, there are big, big Premier League clubs that when they get relegated, they struggle. Leicester City. Bloody Leicester City. Won a title in 2016. Won the FA Cup in, 2020, I think it was? Was regularly challenging European positions and top four, and then, after that relegation, just were not the same. Getting relegated to the Championship, in an optimistic fan's eyes, can certainly be a case of, right, let's have a reset, but it could go badly wrong. It's a gamble. And yes, there is some level of finance structure and wage structure which has helped them. But do you really think that Spurs have got relegation clauses? Things that means that they can cut the wages of the players? And that's just the variable stuff, the things that could change. How about the fact of the stadium that they probably still need to pay that off? These are worrying times. This is no longer a bit of banter we're talking about. This feels real. And I know that there's not going to be as much interest in the second tier or the third tier or the fourth tier as there is in terms of the Premier League. But if Spurs do get relegated, I would be recommending everyone to keep a close eye on them. Because it could go downhill fast. Now, do I think Igor Tudor is actually the man for the job? I do, actually, because I feel like he has that in him to bring the fight, to bring the relegation scrappiness out of the players. But it's no guarantee. No guarantee whatsoever. Really concerning times. Really worrisome times for Tottenham Hotspur. Anyway, now I want to speak about Liverpool. The match between Nottingham Forest and Liverpool that happened, and the game certainly turned up a notch after a certain substitution made by Liverpool, and we kind of want to talk about that and talk about something else. So, Rio Ngumoha, the 17-year-old, I think he is, who actually switched the game up. 17 years old. Now, I want to also talk about the player that Ngumoha replaced in that as well, or one of the two players. So, the substitution that was made by Liverpool was that Ngumoha and Chiesa came on, and it was Cody Gakpo and Mohamed Salah that came off. Now, Cody Gakpo and Mohamed Salah made no chances in 70 minutes. In 10 minutes, Ngumoha made 2. One of them ended up being the winning goal. That can sometimes be the impacts of substitutions, that with their energy they do that, but to not make a single chance in 70 minutes, that is concerning. And with Cody Gakpo, he's more of a case of he needs the space more than anything else, and I'm prepared to give him the time, because he was at least trying stuff, and there was enough promise. But I want to touch on Salah again, and I don't want anyone to think that this is like a hate watch or anything like that, or I am just hating on Mohamed Salah. I adore Mohamed Salah. Of course I do. Incredible player. Certainly will go down as one of the legends. Will probably play games, in terms of the legends matches in the next 10, 15, 20 years' time. But when it comes to this season, nothing's going right. I'm not even talking in terms of a lack of goals or assists, because he did get an assist against Brighton Hove Albion. He got a goal in the Champions League, I believe. I'm talking just his general play. Balls that were coming into him, passes that were coming into him, he was losing the ball. He was over trying, over attempting. It was. I don't know if it was a case of trying too hard, but it was concerning how much of his touch he had lost. Now, with that, and with the situation of Chiesa wanting to play, and the situation of Ngumoha wanting to play, what do you do? Because ultimately, Mohamed Salah is the experienced player. Probably the vice captain, maybe? I don't know. But people are playing better than him. Well, I think I might have a solution. And in a weird way, Liverpool's current situation could really help in making everyone happy. Mohamed Salah loves to play, right? Mohamed Salah loves to play well, loves to perform well, and perhaps wants a bit of glory at the end. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I'm not saying he's bad for wanting glory at the end, is what it is, right? But if I was on a start, I'd be having a chat with Salah about this. Be like going, hey Salah, I bet you would absolutely love a trophy or two, wouldn't you? Which he'll probably say yes. And be like, hey Salah, I bet for those trophies you would love to have an integral part in it, where you are starting from the first minute, you're making chances, you're exciting the opponents, and you're making it all about you. He'll probably say yes to that as well. And then you could say, well, here's the thing, Salah. When it comes to the Premier League, let's be honest, we're probably not going to win a trophy. How would you like to have the FA Cups and the Champions Leagues? We'll start you in every Champions League game, every FA Cup game. You can get yourself ready for those, get yourself pumped up for those, get yourself fired up for those. We'll even give you some substitute appearances on the Premier League as well if you want to make an impact. Have the headlines about you where you come on and you score a goal and you make a change. You do all that. How would you like that? Yeah, I'd love that. And then Ngumoha and Chiesa could potentially play. I don't know. I think I've been trying to think about this for a while, because that's the way I think it should go. Salah's gonna want that legacy, and if this is his last year, let's be honest, him playing the Premier League matches until the end of the season, he's not gonna score hat tricks in every game, right? Maybe he scores like once every 3 games from now on, right? There's still going to be a tinge of it's not quite right, Salah. And I want to see Ngumoha play. I want to see Chiesa play, because they are showing the spirit that I think we need. You want to know why Liverpool are so boring at the moment? It's because there's a player that's not quite fitting in with their system. I feel like someone like Ngumoha, who's a bit more mouldable, will bounce off Florian Wirtz a little bit more. Will bounce off Gravenberch a bit more and Szoboszlai. And they'll just work things out together. But it is... For Mohamed Salah, it cannot go on. And I'm kind of glad that it shows the image of Nico Williams against Ngumoha. Nico Williams of Nottingham Forest. He used to be of Liverpool, actually. Nico Williams was up against Mohamed Salah, and it was easy for Nico Williams. It was scary. Mohamed Salah was basically being little broed. Didn't expect that. So, yeah, I think Ngumoha should play more. Yeah, I think Mohamed Salah should play less. And that's got nothing to do with me disliking Mohamed Salah. It's because I want him to have that legacy untarnished. If Mohamed Salah, right, this thing, if Mohamed Salah just plays the FA Cup and the Champions League games and makes an impact on every couple of games for the FA Cup and the Champions League, and then Liverpool end up in a Champions League final and an FA Cup final, even if they don't win them, by the way, not saying it's for them to win them, but Mohamed Salah makes an impact on that. There's still that legacy is going to be a little bit protected because we were talking, people will remember Mohamed Salah under the lights at Anfield. I mean, think about it. Steven Gerrard, right? His last season with Liverpool was a little bit messy because of the contract situation, and then he ended up leaving and going to LA Galaxy. But people remember that the nights under the lights, the games from Steven Gerrard there. Maybe that's what Mohamed Salah needs to do. Just keep the legacy for himself. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the week. We've got some interesting weekend games going on. Just quickly running through them quite quickly. So we've got... oh my God, it's going to take ages. So we've got Aston Villa going to Wolverhampton Wanderers, hopefully to keep to get some momentum back. On Saturday, we've got Bournemouth playing against Sunderland. We've got Burnley playing against Brentford. Liverpool against West Ham United. Newcastle United versus Everton. Leeds United versus Manchester City. And on Sunday, we've got Brighton Hove Albion versus Nottingham Forest. Fulham versus Tottenham Hotspur. Man United versus Crystal Palace. Arsenal versus Chelsea. And then we'll be on to the Championship. There's a lot still to come. We've got, 2.5 months to go before the end of the season. There is still a lot to play for. There's still a lot of fun to be had. Yeah, it's exciting times. All that's left to say, guys, is take care of yourselves and see you around.